for today's session. Okay, sorry. So look out for your habits, for they will become your character. Look out for your character, for they will become your fate. This is Imam Ali taking us through the process of how our thoughts create our fate, right? And so in that sense, now we know that it is not just happening on a very superficial level, but it's also happening. Just a second. Okay. It's happening on a quantum level. It's happening on an actual, tangible, scientific way. This is how we're creating our reality. Our thoughts are creating our reality, and therefore we understand that when Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is saying that you have to be a caller, you have to be an awake caller. You have to be an awakened being to have control. Otherwise, what's happening is something that I've mentioned over here, autopilot thoughts. Okay, let me just make one thing clear. When I will put my recording online, I will recap, and I will add to the video. I'll make a new video and I'll put it online, so the lecture will be complete. So don't be sad. Okay, inshallah. So we're discussing how our thoughts are creating our fate, and if we have thoughts happening on an autopilot, if we are sitting on a whole pile of beliefs that are creating our reality, if we're seeing things in our reality that we're not happy with, which we don't want, then there are thoughts and beliefs in our subconscious space which are going unnoticed, which are going without us knowing about them, right? And so we need to go deeper and deeper and really excavate what are these thoughts and beliefs that I have been carrying around or sitting on that have been giving out a signal and bringing in a reality that I'm not happy with, that I don't want, right? So we want to create our conscious thoughts on all levels. We don't want our subconscious mind programming to do its work on its own. We want to be in charge, right? So Deepak Chopra has done some work on it, and he says that the best thing that you can desire, so we're on the topic of dua, right? So he says that the best thing that we can desire is the desiring the, just a second, I'm going to read it out. He says the best thing that you can desire, you can desire anything, but the best desire is to be someone. And so what he's saying is that the best desire is not to ask for things external to you, but the best desire is to be someone, right? And as you can see the relationship, Dr. Wayne Dyer also says that you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. So what Deepak Chopra and Dr. Wayne Dyer are trying to explain to us is that being someone is going to create a reality, and therefore the best thing to ask for, the best thing to work for, the best desire to have is to be someone, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us someone, right? And the reality of our life is that we all want perfection. So kids want to be the coolest kids, right? Teenagers want the best fashion. When we grow up, we want the best house and the best car and the best spouse. We have this craving for the best, right? So like I've written over here, we want the best designers and the best degrees and the best house, the best spouse, the best diamonds and best beauty, right? All of it best. So because we're hardwired for perfection, there's a innate nature in us that we've been installed with, we've been programmed to look for the best, to want the best, right? Now what happens is that our desires, so let me go to the next slide. Yeah, our desires, they are the breadcrumbs that take us home. You know, like in that children's story of Hansel and Gretel, I think. You know, they put breadcrumbs to go home. You know, they want to go home and they put those breadcrumbs. So in the way I understand is that that desires that we have, these for children, like if our soul is on a child level, like we're little kids, right? We start desiring little things in this world. And we've discussed how intentions change. We want the world, and then we want the heaven, and then we don't want the hell, and then we want God. So there was a journey to God in our intentions, right? In our desires, in wanting God, there was a journey. So our desires for this dunya, for the things in this world, are like little breadcrumbs. And we start following these breadcrumbs. So first we want a house or a car or a degree, and we keep wanting until we come to realization that there the inner peace doesn't stay in wanting these things in perfection. The inner peace is not lasting, right? And so what happens is that with time, we realize sadness takes over, and we start looking for something that will make us happy, that will fill us, that will fill this inner gap, inner emptiness. And we then start looking for the higher purpose. We start looking for something beyond what catches the eye. And that's why I forgot to put the diagram of Maslow's hierarchy. I'll send it on the group, where Maslow says that, Abraham Maslow says that first your basic need desires of security, food, all of that get fulfilled. And then you go into transcendence. Then you start looking for the higher purpose, and you go for self-actualization and all of that. So the idea is that our desires are also from God. We cannot make ourselves feel bad or guilty or ashamed for having the dunya desires, even for this worldly desires, even because they're taking us somewhere. There's a journey ahead which is coming. And so, one of the things that I read from two scholars yesterday when I was preparing, one was from Dr. Farooq, other was from Yasmin Mujahid, and they both said that dua is actually a way for us to create and build a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in wanting, in having these desires, and sometimes these desires are burning desires, we feel um, trapped, and we feel completely caged by these desires. It's like we can't function unless we get what we desire, like somebody who wants a child, or somebody who wants a promotion, or somebody who wants their dream job. It just burns them to get to that desire. And then you go do everything, and then when nothing works, you go into sajda, and then you pray, and you pray to Allah, make this desire come true. And what that does is that it starts to build a communication and a desire, a communication and a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So through desires and through our wants that emerge within us, we are already on a journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the reason we are desiring these things is because we're hardwired to move towards wanting perfection. And when we are asking for perfection, we don't realize, but we're actually asking for the perfect, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This movement towards perfection is eventually towards the perfect entity, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, moving towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is already happening in our lives whenever we are moving towards our desires. And the way we build this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when we're talking to him. And the way I would like to explain that is that, if somebody falls in love with someone, then they start talking, and just the act of talking, just the act of communication brings so much joy. It's as if that is the gift of uh, desiring, right? It's like you don't want anything else from that person. You just want their time, and you just want to have a relationship. You just want to have a conversation. And so even worldly relationships are all pointing towards a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The perfection of relationship with the desire from a partner is the same, is the same concept. It's teaching us to have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we start to do that with dua, because now a communication is starting. Now a conversation is starting with your beloved. You're moving towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that in itself becomes the gift of desire, the gift of dua. Right. Now, one or two points that I want to mention here is that there is this fitrat within us, the innate desire. So we discussed that. Okay. The other thing that I'll be discussing today is I'm just letting you guys know, is going to be about azab, and azab. I was asked a lot of questions on the topic of azab and fire and fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it is so entrenched in us whenever it comes to religion, whenever it comes to Quran, because there is so much mention of punishment and azab in the Quran. So even though we've mentioned it a few times earlier on, there's still certain things that need to be cleared up. So I'll be talking about that. Okay, so we as human beings can never feel completed or whole with things. Okay, we only become whole when we become whole, when we internally become complete. So our journey has to be from human having to human being, right? We want to be someone, not have, like Deepak Chopra says, the best desire is to be someone, right? Now, what I also want to mention over here is that we talked about meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala earlier on, and we also spoke about how it is so important for us to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we want to become like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, even in this conversation that we're having today, even in this discussion that we're having today, our destination again and again is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Even though this discussion is about our du'as, and our du'as are not always just desiring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of us are not at that level. In fact, yesterday, one of my teachers, I got a message, was explaining the ayah of the Quran in which Allah is saying, all of you are different, and all of you will work from a different place of your emotional state and your constitution. Every human being is made differently, and they work with their own different constitution. So we're all different, and we're all journeying at our different levels, and we're all journeying on our own different paths. So we're all different, and we're working on different levels. And the thing is that we will be desiring this dunya, and we will be desiring God, and sometimes we'll be going back and forth, and until, may Allah bring us to that state where our ego is completely annihilated in Him, we will move in between our stages of desiring different things and God. And what the mystics and what the spiritual masters talk about is this concept of being like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to some mystics like Abraham Hicks or Esther Hicks. They talk about being closer to the source energy, and they talk about how you can be closer to the source energy by being like source energy. So they'll say that adopt qualities of being kind and generous and giving and loving, because these are the qualities of the source, which is God, and which is for us the names of God, Asma'ullah, because they're the names of God. And we've been talking about how to get close to God, we need to become like God. In order to get closer to God, we need to be closest possible to Him in His character. And that's not just Him. Then you come across other teachers like I can't, names are not coming to my mind right now, but this is how they explain. Now I want to quote to a hadith over here, that the hadith number 1 says, God has men, and if they want something, Allah wants it, right? The will of these human beings kind of unifies with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we hear in a hadith where the Holy Prophet says that whoever makes Fatima happy, his daughter happy, makes me happy, and whoever makes me happy makes Allah happy, right? So it's like there's a unification. These people are so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that now whatever they want is what Allah wants, right? Whoever is their friend is the friend of God. Whoever is their enemy is the enemy of God. Then we hear these fazail of Imam Ali alayhi salam, where he's Asadullah and Yadullah and Wajhullah, like he's the hand of God and he's the face of God. And so these awliya Allah, imams and prophets, people who are closer to Allah, are like God. They're godly people, right? They're godly people. They're like God. And so in their character, they emulate God, and they're closest to God in their mannerisms, in their behaviors, in their thoughts, and in their life. And so their will becomes God's will, and there's a unification happening over there. These are people whose egos have been annihilated by Allah. They're in a state of fana. So now they don't exist, only Allah exists and works through them. Hadith number 2, my servant, worship me, obey me, and you be like me. You will say be, and it will be, right? So you become like me, and then you will say, and it will be. So exactly what I was saying, and this is an authentic hadith that I'm quoting over here, just to bring your attention to this process. Now, we were talking about the subconscious mind, and we were saying that the subconscious mind is a pool of thoughts, and it's giving out these signals like a radio antenna, and then that brings in our reality, right? So I want to connect that to Askar, to the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one of the practices given to us in the Quran to do most abundantly is to do dhikr, right? And what is dhikr? Dhikr is remembrance. Dhikr is remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how do we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We remember him through his beautiful names. What are his beautiful names? His beautiful names are his beautiful qualities. So when we take Allah's name, for example, Al-Ghani, right? The giving, the generous, then what we're essentially doing is that we're repeating it. And Imam Khomeini says that when you do a dhikr, in fact, he's talking about Surah Fatiha and Adab al-Salat when he's talking about praying Salah and Namaz. And he says that keep repeating to yourself dhikr or the Surah Fatiha or anything that you're praying to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Keep repeating it, keep saying it again and again until he says keep repeating it to your heart, as if your heart is a child, right? And you keep saying it until like a baby, you keep saying, you want to teach your child to, you have a new baby who's growing up and you want the baby to say mama or baba, and you keep repeating it, mama, 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 until it gets so absorbed in the child that the child now after some time starts to repeat it to you. So your heart is like a child, Imam Khomeini is saying. And when you keep doing these askar to your heart like a child, you keep saying it until one day it repeats it to you. There are people who have reported that they would be doing a dhikr. I'm sure many of you have experienced it, that you do a dhikr and then sometimes you wake up from your sleep and that dhikr is on your tongue. It's because your heart is absorbing that dhikr. Now it's getting absorbed. Now, one of the most important things about doing askar is also to understand what they mean and then to practice what they mean, right? So there's this concept which the spiritual teachers in today's day and age, like Eckhart Tolle or Wayne Dyer or Oprah and all these people, they give is one of the things they teach us is to do affirmations. And affirmations are things that you say to yourself, and you say to them that say these to yourself again and again and again. So affirmation sounds so much like a dhikr, because dhikr is something you say to yourself again and again and again. So there's a repetition and then there's a remembrance. Now, when we do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are not just doing it from our tongue, it has to be absorbed in our action. So if I'm saying ghani, then I want to act generous. So what if I'm really in a very actual way poor and I don't have enough to give to other people, right? What if I feel that way, that I'm not rich and I want to get rich, so I want to do the zikr of ghani so I can become a generous person and I can give. Now you see, there is this general concept that I am poor because I don't own things, And then I don't own things, so I am poor. And so I can't be generous. I can't give. But what happens is that when you start doing the zikr of Ghani and you start saying Ghani, Ghani, Al Ghani, you're saying, I am generous. You're saying in the present moment, you're saying, I am generous. I am generous, right? This is what the New Age masters say. Say what you want, you know, act as if it is true right now. Start believing in what you want your life to become. Believe that you are already rich. That's how you act, right? Act as if it is happening right now. So what happens is that when you start saying, I am generous, the way it starts to affect your life is that now what you're saying is also where you're putting your attention. You are putting attention on all those aspects of your personality, which are actually very capable of being generous right now. So you can be generous with your words. You can be generous with your smiles. You can be generous with your any skills you have. You know, if you know how to fix a car, you can help somebody fix their car. If you know how to, fix somebody's anything, you in your being can be generous. You don't need an external thing to be generous. You have to become a generous person to emulate Allah's name Al-Ghani, which the Holy Prophet is saying, "Takhallaqu bi akhlaqillah," right? Adopt the qualities, the akhlaq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Emulate your source. So Allah is generous. I want to be generous, and I start acting generous, and that is my intention. And my intention is to meet God, and my intention is to meet God by becoming like God. And automatically, you start to emulate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you start getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is happening through your dhikr. And your dhikr is not now just on your tongue, your dhikr is in your actions. And it's a repetition and it's an affirmation. And what some teachers, very recent teachers in spirituality say is that you pull your reality into your present moment by emulating your future. So as a believer, as a wayfarer, as a lover of God, I want to bring into my reality my meeting with God. I want to fulfill my desire of being with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I can start doing that right now by understanding that I can be like God right now. I don't have to wait for the future. But what I have noticed that with this kind of practice, what people start noticing is that abundance starts to happen when you believe there is abundance. Because even though we all say that Allah's treasures are endless, and I believe in Allah, and I believe in his endless treasure, and I believe in his generosity, we don't act like we believe in that. And what this zikr forces us to do now is that it starts to force us to not only believe, but also act that we believe in it. So what happens is now that we start to act like we want to be in our future. And if we start acting like we're already in a state of abundance, then abundance starts to flow. Because why? Because wherever we put our attention, I've written that somewhere. Wherever we put our attention, yes, I have actually quoted an ayat of the Quran where I want to take you. Sorry about this, just a second. Yeah, over here. See, so this ayat, so wherever we put our attention is where we put our energy, and wherever we put our energy is what is going to grow. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, la in shakartum la azidannakum. If you are grateful, I will surely increase you in favor. So what he's saying is that put your gratitude, put your attention on something, and it'll grow, right? If you're grateful for something, we will increase it. That's the whole point. Wherever you will put your attention, if you want to put your attention into becoming godly, and you start acting it, and that's where you put your attention, then that's what's going to grow. Now, one other thing that also needs to happen for us to find success, according to the Holy Quran, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You shall not find success unless you give away, you spend out of what you love, right? So detaching ourselves, the prescription of success, the prescription of finding abundance, the prescription of being prosperous in the Quran is to detach, to let go, to not be attached. Now, the prescription, this is the Quranic prescription, but the prescription that the new age laws of attraction or manifestation, or if you've read the book Secret, they talk about how you can make the life you want and all of that. They have all of this, but the one person whose method I really, really like is Deepak Chopra's. And he talks about becoming like God, basically, as the best desire. So I really feel like our work resonates with his work. And what he says is that first you need to have 100% faith in God, and then you have to let it go. So you set the you desire something, you set the intention for it, and then you let it go. Now, I struggled with practicing that for a while. Why? Because at one point you're saying, have 100% faith in Allah's treasures and know that you're going to get it, right? So for example, I want a red marker, just for example, right? I want a red marker and it's a rare one and I'm not able to get it or whatever. And I'm just, as an artist, I'm just going crazy about it. I'm like, I just want that red marker. So I will start to create thoughts in my mind, which will say, my red marker is on its way and I'm going to get my red marker. God's treasures are unlimited. Nothing is impossible for him. I'm going to get it, right? That's my 100% faith in God. But now the next step is that I let it go. So how can you have 100% faith in Allah's treasure and say, I'm going to get it for sure, but then also not be attached to it and say, I let it go? How do I practically do that? So with time, what I realize is that we have been talking about staying in the present moment, right? We can be awakened species. We can be an awakened being if we are in the present moment, which is the now, only now. And we said that awliya Allah are the people who have la khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun. They don't have grief of the past and they don't have worry of the future. They are the people of the present moment. So what people of the present moment do, what awliya Allah do, how do they become like Allah? How do they become generous and abundant? And then Allah says that they say be and it is. How is it that their will becomes Allah's will? Is because they're the people of the present moment. So what do they do in the present moment? In the present moment, they keep their 100% faith with Allah. So just going back to the example of the red marker, I would say, I have 100% faith in Allah right now that I am going to receive that marker. Okay? Now, if my mind says, but what if I don't get it? What if it's not good for me? What if Allah doesn't want it for me? What if it's, not meant to happen? And then there are hadiths also which say that when your du'as don't get kabul, you get ajr for it in the hereafter. So your brain starts saying all these things to you and you're like, yeah, maybe, I should just surrender and maybe, I won't get it. And it's okay, I will be a grateful servant of God and I will surrender if it doesn't happen. But the thing is that a person who has 100% faith in Allah's treasures, why should that person not have 100% faith in the fact that they will get it for sure? If they have 100% belief and faith, like you can say, well, if it's not good for me, make it good for me. If it's not meant for me, make it meant for me. Like just carve out the path and make this desire. You gave me this desire. Make it happen for me. And you do it with this faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's saying, Uduni astajib lakum. Call upon me and I will respond. So 7 times he is mentioning his name. And then his generosity and his abundance does not deserve that we doubt that he won't give it. Right? So as people of God, in this moment, right now, I decide that for Allah, it's 100% possible to give me what desire has come into my heart. And if any other thoughts come, which might be doubts about not getting it, and one of the most important thoughts that comes is that, what if I get so attached to this thing that if it doesn't happen, then I'll be hurt and I won't be able to deal with not getting it, right? So the way I kind of process this in my mind is that if doubts come, you know that you have left the now. It's an indication. If doubts come, it's an indicator that you left the present moment. Now you're not in the present moment. So that's number one. And if you are because we're all human being, and if this thought and doubt is coming that, yeah, what if I can't deal with it, right? What if I don't get it and I won't be able to deal with it? Then you automatically say that um, Allah, I'm asking Allah, and just like Allah is 100% capable of giving this to me, Allah is 100% capable of handling me and my emotions too. If I am meant to get it, I will get it. And if I'm not meant to get it, then in future, I don't need to worry about it. Because even then, I hand myself over to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will handle that also for me. But the thing is that right now we need to understand that we have to be in constant communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to be in this constant dialogue and conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is what an awakened being does. You're in the now, you're awake, you have control over your thoughts, and you don't allow even a single negative thought. You don't rent out even a minute's headspace to any negative thought. So even for a second, if the thought comes, oh, what if I don't get that red marker? You awaken and you say, I will get that red marker. My God is capable of giving it to me, right? And in that sense, you are in a constant state of allotting your desire to God, and you're allotting yourself and your heart to God. And believe me, if the intention is sincere and the underlying intention is to reach God in all of this, in understanding that these desires are also taking me to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do something which I experienced myself. And it's really important that I share this, is because earlier in my earlier days, there was something that I got so attached to that it burnt me for many years. I wanted something, and for years and years I burned for that desire. And now I look back, it was part of my journey, but for years I was struggling and hurting because I wasn't getting that thing, right? And then there was a lot of spiritual work that ensued. That's a gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that with pain we get closer to him, alhamdulillah, and he takes us on a journey. But what happened is that because of those years of pain, I got scared of desiring things, and I got scared of wanting things, because I was scared I would get so attached that I would become I would go into pain. But what happened is that when I started to practice all these things and I started to put faith over fear, there came a stage where just along the way I realized that the things that I thought I was, attached to, but I was doing all of this work that I just explained to you, handing myself to God, handing my heart to God, like constantly talking to him and staying in a conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I realized that a lot of times, if those things didn't work out, Allah would empty my heart of it immediately. Like he would detach me from it, which is not something I can do myself. And believe me, in that moment when I realized that Allah has detached me from this desire, that detachment was a bigger gift than getting that thing, right? So if I didn't get that red marker, and I realized that now my heart has no love for that red marker, and now I don't desire it anymore because I couldn't get it, that not wanting the marker became the biggest gift for me instead of that red marker, because in this I saw an evolution of the soul. In this, I saw this growth. In this, I saw that Allah was working and Allah was holding me and Allah was helping me, and I couldn't have done it, but He's doing it. So you start noticing these things, that once you start to do this work and once you start to detach yourself, then Allah also starts to detach us from the worldly desires. But all of this has to work with Allah as the axis, Allah as the intention, Allah as the final destination, and Allah as the the beloved, who's the apple of our eyes, the one we desire, right? So I wanna stop for a second. In fact, time is almost up. If anyone wants to say anything, I haven't been reading the chat, so I think I should do that. Okay. Okay, so add to that, many school systems program the children from young age to strive for first and best, working hard to compete with others, not to reach. Yes, that is one of the programming that has decayed and rotten our thoughts and our children, because we think that success is all about competing and being better than the other. And you know that that's a lack theory. It's a lacking way of doing life, because Allah has enough to give, enough to everyone. No one has to be deprived so that the other can get it. Everyone can be a winner. Allah has enough. But because of this kind of training, we actually forget that. And that creates a lack mindset. Right. And then the hedonic adaptation, hedonic theory, and behavioral theory apply here. Are you guys saying that what we just explained is hedonic theory? Please, I'm not aware of the hedonic theory. I just know hedonicism and being hedonistic is about going after worldly things obsessively. Um, okay, so that's it in the chat right now. Is there anything else that anyone wants to say or add to the discussion, or just give me feedback that so far things are clear? Okay, clear. Okay, so I can't leave this discussion hanging here, so I'll have to take a little bit of your time. I really apologize for that. Unless you all want to take it to the next session. But until you guys are okay, I'm gonna go on and add a bit here. So 3 things help us in changing our subconscious mind, right? We don't want to give out unwanted signals coming out of our subconscious mind. We don't want a life out of control. We want life to happen for us under control. And for that, what we can do is that we can practice deep states of meditation in which Allah opens to us ourselves. We're able to observe our inner realities in deep states of meditation. We can observe what's going on within us. We can access these thoughts. We become the watcher. And when we become the watcher and observer, we can start to see thoughts earlier that were going on autopilot. We can start observing them. And in silence and stillness, when we can see the thoughts, we can change them. So in the silence, if I have a thought that I will never get this red marker, it's just beyond my reach, and I can start telling myself a positive affirmation, which will say, no, I can get the red marker. Red marker is coming. It's on its way. There's no way. I mean, you just say a positive thing then, right? You can change that. Then sleep. So the thing with sleep is that sleep is the highest, we had mentioned earlier that sleep is the highest state of meditation. According to Dalai Lama, I can share some of his work where he actually emphasizes that sleep is a very high state of meditation. And so a lot of times you can hear affirmations before you go to sleep. And a lot of the masters, they say that what you hear last before sleeping, your brain starts to reprogram according to that. That's why we're told to read Quran and ayats of Quran and do muhasaba in nafs before going to sleep, right? We hear the hadith is that right before you go to sleep, be accountable. What is that? Like if you said something mean to someone, repent, alter your being. Don't just go to sleep with this baggage, with this garbage within you, which starts to get internalized on a daily basis. So before going to sleep, it's a state where the brain waves are very open and they receive, and then overnight we're marinating. That's the word uh, teachers use, that sleep is a time when your subconscious mind is getting marinated. So marinated with good thoughts, with good affirmations, with positive thoughts, and you can change your signal that you're throwing out in the world through your sleep. So that's number two. And number three, we discussed in detail affirmations and zikr. And what I also want to share with you is this lady, very, very wise lady, holy lady, BK Shivani. I hear a lot. And one of the times when I was hearing her on YouTube, she said that we all have these folders in our drive, right? In our hard drive, like if it's like computer, we have a folder. And imagine if I have a folder of losing my temper, right? And I'm just not able to change that about myself, then I just need to do affirmations that, um, for example, the opposite of losing my temper would be I am calm. I'm a calm person. I'm always under control. These are positive affirmations. So she said that in order to change ourselves and our reality, um, we have to undo the data that is filled in that folder. We want to change the information which is in that folder. So we keep repeating the opposite of what we don't want, and we keep repeating it like a zikr, like a repetition, like a remembrance, to change that. And we all realize, right, like eventually all good characters are the characters of God. So I don't want to be an angry person. I want to be halim and latif like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to be jameen and wudud like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in me not losing my temper, I will become like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a zikr. Eventually it's a zikr, when I want to do that, right? So we discussed all of that. We've done this. Yeah. And then um, I wanted to mention this ayah over here because we were talking about the hidden messages in our subconscious, right? The the area within me, the territory within me, which I want to become aware of, the 95% of my subconscious mind, which I can't see, but I want to see and I want to change it. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Inna hadaynahu sabil, imma shakiran wa imma kafura. Indeed, we guided him to the way, be he grateful or be he ungrateful, right? So over here, we mentioned earlier the importance of doing shukr, right? Wherever you put your attention, where whatever you're grateful for will increase. So we have a choice between two ways of doing life. One is to be grateful and put attention on the positive, which is what we were talking about, doing positive affirmations. And the other is kafura. Now, kafura is coming from the word kufr. Kufr means uh, to hide. So kafir is usually a farmer in Arabic, a farmer who hides the seed under the soil. And what I find so interesting about the word kafura coming in as an opposite to shakura, right? Like, for example, we can see that Allah is saying imma shakiran wa imma kafura. So what is so interesting is that Allah is saying that either you can be grateful or you can hide. And once you can go and discover what was hidden within you, you can now change that and bring it into a positive. So either you're working on an autopilot with a subconscious mind which is going on autopilot and you have no idea, and it is hidden, buried within you, and it's there, but you're not willing to see it. You don't want to face your emotions. You don't want to go and see your grief. You don't want to go and see your trauma from childhood or your all of that. You have it buried under you like a seed under the soil, or you can be grateful. So the only other way to do life is to open that up, go deep within yourselves, and then start working on moving into positive affirmations. Now, I would like to touch upon the question of azab and nar and the khawf that we wanted to discuss. Those of you who'd like to go can go. I'm going to be recording it, so it will be in the recording when I upload it on YouTube. but I think that it's been pending for a really long time, and I owe it. I really need to explain this. So I created this very muddled up slide because I wanted to put everything together and explain it properly. So the question that has been coming to me is about guilt, that there's a nafse lawama which is telling us to feel guilty so that we prevent ourselves from going into doing guna and sin. And so we discussed that how guilt is such a low vibrational energy, and how can God ever want us to stay in a state of guilt, number one. And number two, somebody has raised their hand. Just a second. Yes, please go ahead if someone wants to say anything, Chad, uh, or even unmute yourself and say something. Please go ahead. Yes, Masuma Ismail, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself and say if you need to say anything. And if you've done it by mistake, then that's fine. I'll just move ahead. All right. So otherwise, just please unmute yourself. No issues. So the question is that how can guilt be a part of our spiritual journey when it is such a low vibration? Number two, if we do not have fear of God, if we do not have adab and this deterrent from the sins through the idea of hell, then we'd be spoiled and we'd be doing guna. And so how do we understand all of that? So what I wanted to share with you today is like we were doing the 7 stages of the nafs, and we discussed how there are layers of the soul, and we still have to touch upon that. We still have to talk about nafs lawama, nafs amara in detail. It's already part of my slideshow that I bring with me into class every week, but somehow we don't get there. So it's part of the work that we need to discuss. But what I'm sharing with you today is very arbitrarily that we have these 7 stages. And as we grow in our journey, as we move closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what happens is that we evolve. So when we're evolving and the layers are shedding and the veils are shedding, then the idea and image of God in our mind also evolves. God in his essence is not evolving, but my God is evolving. The God I worship is evolving. Now, what I have shared in this diagram, all right, is that in the first few stages, these are arbitrary, like these are approximate ideas that I'm sharing with you according to the research I've done. They cannot be exact because the soul is not a form being that can be, there cannot be exactions put on there. But these are just approximate ideas that I'm sharing with you, that in the initial stages we work with fear, and then in the higher stages we work with awe and faith and love and hope. So initially fear is good, initially fear helps us, and guilt is something that stays with us. Guilt is the alarm. It's like the alarm bell that goes off ringing when we kind of swerve away from the right track. And what we do is that, what do we do in our homes? How do we work with alarms in our homes? The alarm goes on and we switch it off immediately because it's blaring in our ears. We switch it off immediately before we can even do something else, right? So guilt is this beautiful gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which brings us back, which realigns us. But it's not supposed to be ringing on and on and on, because then that can have a lot of negative psychological effects. And I know personally, in my work of doing religious work, studying scripture and working with God, how guilt can become so counterproductive. So we have to treat it like an alarm bell, and we have to switch it off and then understand guilt came to teach me something, and now I need to learn from it and fix that thing that I need to fix, learn that thing that I need to learn, and then switch it off and move on. It's not supposed to keep making me feel so bad that eventually I start feeling like I'm so disgusting and ugly that I can't even go and talk to God anymore. So, our mystics say that anything, any kind of guilt, any kind of feeling unworthy, that will take you away from God, throw it away. It has no place, because that is the weapon of shaitan. It takes us away from God, right? So fear and guilt have their work, and they work for us beautifully, but they cannot keep going on after a certain stage. So for a university student now, you don't need to go and tell them that you'll fail, or if you don't pass your exam, or if you don't attend your class. At that stage, the student's supposed to enter their classrooms and know on their own what is good and bad for them, right? But with little kids, you have to give them consequences, and you have to make them understand the consequences of their actions constantly. Like, if you don't eat, you're going to fall sick. If you don't come to class, you won't learn. And that's what fear is doing now. So what happens is that fear causes constriction, okay? And faith and love cause expansion. And so what we want to do is that use fear and guilt in balance, and use it in the right way, so that this kind of constriction can lead to eventual expansion, right? And so therefore, what is the most important point that I want to mention here is that the word azab that was in question, it has this meaning of punishment, which is usually used and which is what we usually hear. But azab has another meaning, which is sweet, intimate flavor, right? The intimate communion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the flavor. For the initial stages, azab has its superficial meaning for us, because we haven't gone deeper. Initial stages are superficial stages, so the meaning stays superficial. And then in higher stages, the meaning evolves, because now my concept of God is evolving. Now my concept of reality in the world is evolving. And so the stages that I have shared over here are from Deepak Chopra's book, How to Know God. This is the book, How to Know God by Deepak Chopra. And he's given these stages. This is a phenomenal book. And this is a summary that he shares. And he says that in stage 1, there's a horizon of fear, where I'm thinking that I provide for the necessities and look out for myself. But when I get anxious and I feel lost, only God knows why bad things happen in this world. So this is my initial stage, where I'm bounded by anxiety, insecurity, and dependency. And then I go into a state of control, where I'm bounded by guilt and duty and victimization. And then further on, it becomes about the horizon of fatalism, where I'm like, I'm at peace with myself and know what is happening with me inside, but I lose my center when nothing makes sense. And only I feel like only God knows why destiny can be so cruel and capricious. And so I'm bounded by karma and introversion and lack of power. I'm feeling this lack of power. And then there is the stage of self-deception. um, and then you go to another stage, which is, I'm not going into too much detail, you can all see this later on, I'll send the notes. Then there is, I'm bounded by self-absorption, grandiosity, and playing God, right? And then I go into the horizon of identity, where I'm bounded by my thought, my personal ego, and traces of my old conditioning, until in the last stage there are no boundaries, and you feel one with God. You feel this unity with God. Now, I wanna base this work with the hadith, and I want to explain to you a few points. The state of constriction in our literature, when the soul is going through states of constriction, it's called the state of qabs, constriction, and that's also Allah's name, Qabis, because Allah is with Allah's will. And then when there is love and faith, then there's an expansion. It's called state of bas, right? And Allah is basit. Expansion happens with His will. And from a shallow state of understanding, from a superficial understanding, the journey goes upwards towards a deeper and more deeper understanding, right? And then Imam Ali alayhi salam says, just a second, I want to share. Yeah, this is what I want to share. Um, so our in our hadith we read about fear and hope, and I love this beautiful passage where it is said that fear keeps a watch over the human heart, and hope is the soul's intercessor, and that of its aspirations. Those who know God fear Him, while they place their hopes in His grace. This fear and hope are like two wings of faith. By their means, those who study the order of being and creation fly towards God's good pleasure and witness God's promises and warnings with the eyes of their intellects. By inspiring awe in respect of his warnings and fear of God turns them towards God's justice, and the hope in him calls them towards his beneficence and favor. This is how hope revives the heart, and fear suppresses satanic inclination. Hence, the purpose of fear is only to mobilize one's energy and effort to find the way of deliverance from danger and peril. So you understand that there's a purpose to the guilt, there's a purpose to the fear, and eventually this fear turns into awe. It's not the fear of feeling terrorized or feeling scared, right? And the one really, really important thing that I wanted to share, just a second, yes, about guilt is that if we look at guilt, we realize that guilt has a purpose, and we discussed how there's a red alarm that goes on right now. What we also want to understand is that what are we feeling guilty of? If we are going to feel guilty that I have made my God upset, and if we are feeling guilty that there's this entity who emotionally changes when I do something, then that is incorrect. That is not why I'm feeling guilty. I'm not feeling guilty because I've made God upset or displeased with me in the sense the way we do it with human beings, right? God is complete. He doesn't change. He is not mutaghayyir. He doesn't have these changes. But the guilt is in me losing out an opportunity, in realizing what a loss I have created for myself. And for example, if I'm feeling jealous, or if I'm feeling uh, you know anything of that sort in my heart, I'm feeling hatred, then it is my loss. It's me who has corrupted and adulterated my inner state. I am the one who is creating loss for myself. And how can I waste this opportunity of life in these states, in these unworthy states? And that is the guilt that God has given me this beautiful opportunity. How can I waste this gift, right? So it's all about the self. It's about my journey. It doesn't affect God in that way. The reason I'm saying this is because guilt becomes the number one reason why we feel abandoned. Because now we're saying, as the text over here is saying, that um, in the state where I'm feeling that the guilt is affecting my state, what I will do is that I'll say, God, I stumbled, I made a mistake. I run back to you. You are my balm in my hurting heart. I come back to you. Balm me, help me, hold me, correct me, guide me, protect me, so I can go back to my beautiful self, to my potential, to my good self, and recalibrate myself to my goodness. But if my guilt was coming from a place where I'm saying God is upset with me now, and he's turned his face away from me, and now he won't talk to me, then the very thing that was the source of my guidance, the very thing that is the source of my growth, the very idea, the very entity who has the capability of bringing me back to my good self, I have shunned myself off it. I have created this state of feeling abandoned, which is not true, because Allah can never ever abandon us. He can never leave us. It's not possible that he ever leaves us. So I really wanted to make these things clear when discussing the idea of fear, guilt, azab. I hope some of the ideas have become clear. I would like to close my discussion with this these two, three things that I have here. Allah says, I am in the opinion of my servant. Your perception of Allah sets the tone for your relationship with Him. Allah doesn't gain anything from punishing you. He's looking for an excuse to give you eternal happiness. Take one step towards Him, give Him an excuse, right? So we were talking about how Allah evolves in our relationship. He is in our opinion. And if you read this book, How to Know God, Deepak Chopra actually discusses the uh, different relationships we have with Allah. It starts with guilt, and eventually it becomes a relationship of love. So he's shown 7 stages of our relationship with Allah and how it evolves. So this is what Sheikh Azhar Nasir has written in his tweet, that the we are, Allah says that I am in the opinion of my servant, and that opinion keeps changing. And then Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says this beautiful passage about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Allah is a drink for his close friends. When they drink of it, they are intoxicated. When they are intoxicated, they are enraptured. When they are enraptured, they are happy. When they are happy, they are overcome with grief. And when they are grieved, they become sincere. So for me, a question came up in my heart. Why is he saying that we would become grieved? We become grieved because now when we're in love with someone, there's a separation, and that's what grieves us the most, to be away. They become sincere. You know how pain makes a person sincere, makes them solemn, makes them serious about life. In a way that happens in this stage of grief. And when they're sincere, they seek him, and when they seek him, they find him, and when they find him, they reach him, and when they reach him, they connect with him, so that there is no distance between them and their beloved. Inshallah, Ameen. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. I hope that this has answered the queries that I was receiving throughout the week. If anybody has any questions, please email them to me at quransanctuary@gmail.com. You can also yeah, that would be the best thing. I don't want to take any more of your time. Let us put our hands up for dua right now. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Oh Allah, enable us to absorb these lessons into our souls and help us transform our lives beyond just words. Oh Allah, enable us to change the direction of the ship of our life, create a paradigm shift, create a transformation that you would be proud to see in us. Allah, make us, Allah, you are already like the way we would like to see you, as our Imam says, make us the way you would like to see us. O Allah, heal this world and enable us to fulfill our responsibilities in this time of need. O Allah, teach us through our trials and hardships and never make us go away from you. Ya Allah, that would be only our folly and our fault. O Allah, enable us to see the good in everything. And with your mercy and grace, Ya Allah, keep us in your guidance and enable us to see the truth when it's in front of us, and enable us to break the shackles of our conditioning and our old belief systems so that we can truly see the truth with the least amount of bias that is possible. Inshallah, Ameen. Allah, we send our blessings and peace on the Holy Prophet and his progeny. Ya Allah, enable the reappearance of your Akhri Hujjah as soon as possible, and enable us to see the true Mahdi and understand the true concept of Mahdiism. Ameen. If I can request you to pray a Surah Fatiha for all the Marhumeen and Shuhada. Okay, everybody, fi amanillah, Allah Hafiz.